There are, I noticed really two different kinds of worms eating broccoli and cabbage and kale, all of that family. And I'm not sure whether the butterfly or moth, I'm not sure which it is, that lays the eggs, but I've seen these little white butterflies of kind of flittering around in a circle over the cabbage patch. And I checked and found out they're at least one of the culprits. They lay eggs and they hatch very quickly. And if you're not careful and watching, they lay the eggs underneath the leaf and they hatch and they're voracious. And in no time flat, your row of broccoli can be just really decimated and set back a long way. I squash them when I see them. I don't know what to, there is a BT, a bacteria thuringiensis or something like that. Bacillus thuringiensis or something, powder that you can dust onto the foliage, and that is an organic thing because it makes the bugs sick and they stop eating and die. But it's harmless to people. It's one of the few, well now I haven't checked, there may be organic methods better than that one these days. It's been a little while since I've really studied up on my gardening organically, but that was the most helpful thing I found. That and then diatomaceous earth, again with a duster, and again underneath the foliage as much as you can, because that will pierce the bodies. That you can't see it, but they have very sharp little spines on the crystals of silicon, I think it is, and they penetrate the skin of the caterpillars and they dry out. The caterpillars can't avoid them if they're eating, and that is another way of controlling the caterpillars. It's on the whole family of cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, the whole shooting match. I've not seen these particular worms on other plants, but they are good. I have seedlings sometimes, a flat of seedlings on the deck there, and I have to, one day I'm looking and they look fine, the next day I'll look and this little, just the veins are left on the leaves, that's all. The leaves are just chewed to bits. They hatch, and there's a lot of them sometimes, and they just eat everything in sight. But that family only. It's only that one type of plant, the coal family. And then what else? Oh Lordy. Spider mites are another nasty. You usually can't see them with the naked eye. If you've good eyes, you can see them. They're little tiny spiders living on the underneath of foliage, sometimes on the upper side, but mostly a lot of bugs like to hang out on the underneath because birds and whatever can't see them or get them. And those are hard to get rid of. They take, you can see kind of yellowy green spots on foliage or very yellow patches sometimes if they have a chance to really, they like dry weather, they don't like rain, they don't like water sprayed on the underside of leaves. They don't like water at all, the dirty little rascals. I often used to spray the undersides of leaves of things with water, but you can also, there's a organic, at least it used to be. Again, I'm not really on top of some of it. Used to be a soap that does not damage. You can't use any old soap. It's a mild dish soap that they've developed for drowning them. It kind of makes it impossible for them to. It takes, what is that light? You know, the thing that makes it possible for a drop of water to sit on top of a pond. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or it's surface tension. I don't understand physics about what it is exactly, but soap allows water to penetrate into material that would be very difficult for it to penetrate normally. Right. And so this soap stuff does the same and makes it impossible for the critter to get air. And it's kind of nasty. I mean, all this, well, it's a battle. Mm-hmm. It is nasty. It's kind of a struggle between the bugs and you, or the critters. Those are some of the worst that well, the cabbage borer, yeah, that's a humdinger. I honestly am not sure what the best thing to do. Of course, if you see it, you see the stuff called frass. That's the stuff that when they're chewing, it's what passes out their rear end. That little sawdusty stuff. If you see any sign of that, what I've done is just a kind of a major pain, but take a piece of soft wire and run it into the hole, and you pierce the critter in the hole inside the squash vine where he's living. Otherwise, I'm sure there are organic ways of distracting. I think sometimes it's fragrances that they don't like. Sometimes I know onions are great at protecting, but it's just a short distance. You know, you can't plant an onion, and then 3 foot away have something you want to protect. You got to have them pretty close to make it work. And it's I think it's a lot you can learn by just experimenting. I had my strawberry bed out there, and a nice soft soil, and the critters that love the soft soil make it like a condominium for them. I was just setting it up, and they ate the roots of all the strawberries. I would just pick up it would look wilty, and I just pick it up, and there's nothing underneath left at all, not a crumb. And so I planted garlic in the rows, and that discouraged them. It didn't stop them completely. It only discouraged them. And so I remember reading about planting garlic around the trunk of a tree to stop the aphids from getting up in the tree, or the ants from carrying the aphids up into the tree. This fascinating stuff. I mean, it's fascinating to watch, but it's nasty if you're trying to grow something to eat. But the ants will take aphids and they milk them. She's probably read about that. They just stroke their backs, and this drop of honeydew comes out, and they carry it into their little nest in the ground. And then there's scale insects, and they do the same thing. I had a scale plant in the sunroom, and that honeydew comes out of both the scale and the aphid. Again, the scale is again soapy water, drowns or stops. Yeah. It seals itself as a protection. It's got a kind of hard shell on the outside, and then it's sucking the juices out of the leaf underneath that protection. And So they just go to town and multiply, and the ants carry them around. But they can do their own thing and move around. But the ants also like, because then they can gather the honeydew from them. It's mostly the little brown ants. I'm not sure, again, about different kinds of ants, but the big ones, the big black ones or red ones, I don't think I've ever seen them aphid farming. It's mostly the smaller ants, the dark brown and lighter brown. Heavens. And then the critters, Lordy. There's groundhogs. The moles are interesting because they eat worms, and they make a mess in the garden, but they don't eat roots. It's the little creatures that follow in the trail of the mole that eat the roots. It's the voles. It's a little tailless mouse, and it's cute as a button, but it's very destructive. They eat and they multiply like, oh gosh, they're very hard to control.